Everyone has a breaking point. For Adenike, hers came in the form of a whispered insult. It wasn't loud. It wasn't in front of a crowd. But it shattered her like glass. Used goods, Tate sneered after their divorce was finalized, handing her a signed paper as casually as someone handing a receipt. You'll never get a man of value again. The words haunted her like a shadow, lurking in every mirror she stood in front of. But what he didn't know, what no man like him ever considers, is that the woman they throw away might one day be the storm that ruins their illusion of perfection. This story begins not with love, but with a betrayal, and it ends with an invitation that no one saw coming. Adenike grew up in Akure, Nigeria, in a modest home where love was loud, food was plenty, and loyalty was sacred. Her parents, though not rich, taught her the value of kindness and hard work. So when she met Tate Bamadil, a sharply dressed, smooth-talking banker with a quick smile and expensive perfume, she believed she had hit the jackpot. At first, Tate was everything she wanted. Charming, ambitious, and attentive in public. He showered her with gifts, whispered promises of forever, and took her to restaurants her parents couldn't even pronounce. Their wedding was grand, white orchids, satin lace, and a hall full of envy. But marriage stripped the gloss from Tate's charm. Once the doors were shut, Tate no longer played the part of the perfect husband. He was emotionally distant, controlling, and quick to remind her of how he had saved her from a life of average. Adenike wasn't allowed to work. He claimed it was because he was providing everything she needed. The truth? He didn't want her to have independence. For years, she endured the slow rot of emotional abuse, thinking love was about sacrifice. But the final straw came 2 years in, when she found a pair of red lace underwear in his briefcase that wasn't hers. She confronted him, tears, rage, betrayal all boiling over in one breathless moment. Tate didn't deny it. He didn't even flinch. "Look at you," he said coldly. "You've let yourself go. You're not the girl I married. You're baggage now. Used goods." Those words pierced her deeper than any infidelity could. Not because of the insult, but because she realized she'd been nothing more than a trophy on his shelf. Now, she was a cracked statue no longer worthy of his attention. The divorce was swift. Tate, as expected, didn't fight it. In fact, he celebrated it, like it was a business deal that finally ended his liabilities. He left her with nothing but her clothes and a rented apartment in a dusty corner of Abadan. But he had underestimated the quiet woman he thought he discarded. The first few months were hell. Adenike had no job, no savings, and no support system except her older cousin, Ayabo, who took her in and encouraged her to restart. She wept every night, sometimes in silence, sometimes out loud, feeling like a failure, a fool, and yes, exactly what Tate called her, used goods. But rock bottom is often where rebirth begins. With nothing to lose, she decided to take back control. She enrolled in a 6-month digital marketing course online, using a borrowed laptop and data from Ayabo's husband's business center. Every night she studied. Every day, she offered free marketing help to small vendors at Bodija Market to build her portfolio. One of them, an elderly woman named Mama Kemi, ran a struggling shea butter brand. Adenike helped her rebrand, taught her sons how to manage an Instagram store, and soon enough, their small business began to thrive. Word spread. She started getting freelance gigs, small ones at first. Then came a breakthrough. A Lagos-based startup looking for someone to manage their product launch needed a marketer with grassroots experience. Adenike pitched herself with nothing but raw passion and examples of real results. They hired her. From there, it was like watching a phoenix rise. Within 2 years, she had built a respected name in marketing circles, started her own boutique agency, and was invited to speak at women's empowerment panels across Nigeria. But even as her professional life soared, she remained quiet about her past. She never spoke publicly about Tate. Not even when she was asked about her divorce journey. She always replied with grace, "Sometimes we have to lose ourselves to find who we truly are." Then came the twist. At a tech gala in Victoria Island, she was invited to speak on a panel alongside a tall, distinguished man named Mr. Bade Ojewol, the CEO of one of Nigeria's largest finance conglomerates. He was polished, brilliant, and visibly impressed by Adenike's intelligence and candor. After the event, he approached her. "You speak like someone who has learned through fire," he said with a warm smile. "We could use someone like you at Ojewol Group." Within months, she was consulting directly with his firm, guiding their marketing transitions and advising their executives. Bade became a mentor, and slowly, something more. He was different. Humble, despite his wealth. Gentle, despite his power. Where Tate had seen her as property, Bade saw her as a partner. The irony came crashing in one Friday during a board meeting she attended at Ojewol Group's headquarters. As she walked into the sleek glass conference room, her eyes met a pair she thought she would never see again. Tate. Dressed in his usual designer suit, still smirking with the confidence of a man who had never been told no. He looked at her, blinked twice, and laughed softly under his breath. He didn't say anything, but his look said it all. "What are you doing here?" The answer came when Bade walked in, kissed her cheek lightly, and introduced her to the board as the new head of strategic brand partnerships. Tate's face fell like a tower hit by thunder. The man who once called her used goods was now answering to the woman he discarded. Weeks passed. Tate kept his distance, though she caught him stealing glances in meetings, confused by her presence and rising status. One day, he finally cornered her near the parking lot. "Adenike," he began awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "You look good." She didn't smile. He tried again. "I didn't expect you here." "I mean, you've done well for yourself." She looked at him, calm and composed. "No thanks to you." Silence. Then he chuckled nervously. "You know, maybe we could get coffee sometime. Just talk." She paused. Not with anger. Not even disgust. But with the stillness of someone who has healed beyond pain. "I don't do coffee with people who throw away diamonds because they prefer shiny stones." Months later, Bade proposed. It was a quiet affair in Obudu, under the glow of lanterns and laughter. As they planned the wedding, Adenike had one small request. She wanted to handle the guest list. Bade, ever supportive, agreed. And so, on a hot Thursday morning, a white envelope arrived on Tate's office desk. It was clean, elegant, and sealed in gold wax. He opened it curiously. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Adenike Ajayi and Bade Ojewol." He dropped it like it had burned his hand. But the worst wasn't just her marrying someone else. It was her marrying his boss. The whispers began that week. The stares. The confusion from colleagues. And Tate, the once proud banker who mocked a woman's worth, now had to attend meetings under her authority or leave the company in shame. The wedding made the headlines, not because it was a celebrity affair, but because of the unexpected pairing, Adenike Ajayi, a once-unseen wife turned marketing powerhouse, marrying Bade Ojewol, the reclusive billionaire CEO of Ojewol Group. The photos were everywhere, Adenike in a sleek ivory dress designed by a Ghanaian fashion icon, her smile radiant, her posture regal, dignified and smitten, held her hand like it was the most valuable contract he'd ever signed. And in the middle of the celebration, far away from the flower-strewn aisle, sat Tate Bamidele, sipping whiskey alone in a dark lounge with the wedding invite still clutched in his hand. The words burned more than the drink. "You are cordially invited." He hadn't attended. He couldn't. He had imagined himself walking in confidently, pretending to be unbothered. But when the reality hit, that the woman he once ridiculed was now married to the man who signed his paycheck, his pride crumbled. But Tate wasn't the type to accept defeat. He started lurking in meetings Adenike led, volunteering for projects just to stay close. He brought coffee he never used to offer, opened doors he never used to notice, and even tried making small talk like they were old friends. Adenike saw through it all. Every coincidental hallway meeting, every fake smile. One afternoon, during a cross-department strategy meeting, Tate casually mentioned a client pitch from years ago. Nike and I used to talk about this idea back when we were still, you know. The room went still. Executives looked around awkwardly. Nike didn't flinch. She turned slowly to him. "I think you mean Mrs. Ojwal," she said with perfect calm. "And no, you and I never discussed strategy. You discussed how to silence my ideas." The room stirred. Someone stifled a cough. Tate shrank in his seat. From that day, there was no pretending. As the months passed, the gap between them became undeniable. Adonike's campaigns for the company drew international attention. Investors credited her with modernizing the brand image. Bade, now more public because of her, grew even more respected, and her influence within the company doubled. Tate, meanwhile, began to lose footing. He missed a few targets. He was passed over for a promotion. His coworkers whispered behind his back. It didn't help that his new girlfriend, a much younger influencer he had flaunted on social media after the divorce, left him after his lifestyle dipped. Her parting post stung. Ladies, never mistake a rented lifestyle for real power. Know the difference between a king and a poser. Tate spiraled. He showed up at Adonike's office one evening unannounced. The security tried to stop him, but she permitted the meeting, out of courtesy, not curiosity. He sat before her, disheveled but trying to look composed. "You won," he said bitterly. "Is that what you wanted?" She looked at him for a long time, then said gently, "I didn't want to win. I wanted to heal." He scoffed. "You think marrying my boss healed you?" "No," she replied. "Healing started the day I realized I didn't need your validation to be whole. This marriage was just a bonus." Tate leaned forward, desperate now. "I made a mistake, Nike. You were a good woman. Maybe the best thing I ever had. I was stupid. But I've changed." She stood up, signaling the meeting was over. "You didn't think I was used goods because I was divorced," she said calmly. "You thought that because you were too broken to see value in someone you couldn't control." Tate sat in silence. "And I didn't marry Bade to get back at you," she added, walking toward the door. "I married him because he saw my worth, long before he saw my past." Outside, rain had begun to fall. It tapped softly on the glass panes of her office as Tate slowly exited, his figure dissolving into the dusk. She watched him for a moment. Not with hatred. Not even pity. Just quiet closure. The rain that evening never stopped. It felt like a slow cleansing, washing away the last traces of a man who had once called her broken, discarded her like a wrapper, and now stood small beneath the towering woman he helped create. But Tate wasn't finished. In the days that followed their final conversation, he began leaking stories to mutual friends, playing the victim. He spun tales about how Nike used him to climb the ladder, how she schemed her way into Bade's world, and how he was merely the first draft before she upgraded to wealth. The words reached her, but she didn't flinch. Silence was her answer. And in that silence, her dignity grew louder. But then came the breaking point. A confidential email was sent anonymously to the Ojwal Group's board, accusing Nike of having a romantic relationship with Bade before she was hired, suggesting her position was a result of favoritism and not merit. It was baseless. But corporate boards are cautious. An emergency meeting was called. Lawyers were consulted. Bade, furious but calm, traced the source of the leak. It didn't take long. Tate. He had risked his job, his future, and his integrity in a final, desperate attempt to bring her down. He thought the company would cave. That the scandal would stain her rise. But he miscalculated one thing. Nike had receipts. At the board hearing, she stood tall. She presented documented proof, emails, timelines, employment records, all clearly showing that her relationship with Bade had started months after her first consultancy. In fact, she had initially rejected his offer for a position to avoid conflict of interest. She didn't just defend herself, she dismantled every lie, calmly and precisely. When she finished, the room fell into stunned silence. And then the chairman asked, "Do you wish to press charges for defamation?" She paused. This was the moment she could destroy him completely. And yet, she smiled softly. "No," she replied. Let him live with the weight of knowing that the woman he once called worthless didn't just rise above him, she forgave him. The board nodded. Bade reached for her hand under the table. Tade was fired. Not just for the email, but for breaking internal ethics codes and smearing a company executive. His exit was quiet. No press, no drama, just a single box of belongings and a severance stripped of honor. A year later, Adenike stood on a TEDx stage in Abuja. She was now one of the most sought-after voices in leadership, especially among African women. Her topic? The power of walking away. Her voice carried over the audience like gospel. Sometimes, the people who hurt you aren't evil, they're just empty. They try to break you so you'll reflect their own worthlessness. But you're not their mirror. You're your own masterpiece. And to the women listening, if someone calls you used goods because you loved and lost, remind them, diamonds don't lose value because they changed hands. They shine because they survived pressure. The hall erupted in applause. And somewhere in a quiet, dim one-bedroom apartment in Suralere, a man watched it all on a flickering screen, his drink warm, his world small. Tade. No company. No reputation. Just regrets and echoes. And that wedding invite, still tucked inside an old briefcase, yellowing with time. Adenike never sought revenge. She sought freedom. And in rising with dignity, she gained more than any insult could steal. She became a symbol, not of perfection, but of power reclaimed. Of value rediscovered. Of a woman, once discarded, who rose not to destroy, but to inspire. Never measure someone's worth by their past. The ground that was once stepped on may one day be the mountain others must climb.